Hi, I'm Wendy from Wendy's Kitchen. In this video, I'm going to show you how I make my sourdough focaccia. The full recipe and step-by-step guide is available on my blog, myloveofbaking.com, and I'll provide you the link in the video description below. I have doubled the recipe to fit this 9x13 pan. So let's get started.
Alright, so I start by measuring the water, and I usually measure my sourdough starter in the same container. I like to give it a good mix and then add it straight onto my flour. And I usually use a spatula to mix the dough. I mean, you can totally use a mixer for this purpose. I like to do it by hand. You can also use a wooden spoon. Okay, fast forward to the mixed dough. So once the flour is all hydrated, I usually ditch my spatula and then move on to mixing with my hands. This way I can actually tell if I need any more water, if my flour is all hydrated and stuff like that. Alright, so this is the mixed dough. You can also use a scraper to clear the sides of the bowl and release all the stuck bits of the dough. And then you just simply cover the mixed dough and then leave it to rest for about an hour. That's done, so we move it aside, and this is the remaining starter. So I'm going to feed this now with some flour and some water. This is what I usually do. I use the same starter in the same container, and I always refresh it, use it, and then feed it again and then put it in the fridge. So once this is thoroughly mixed, the lid can go on, and now this is ready to go in the fridge until I need it again. Alright, so this is our kneaded dough or the mixed dough after the 1 hour rest. Look how developed this dough looks. I mean, without us doing anything, it's been just sitting there. And it's now time to add the salt. In goes the salt. And I've used wet hands to mix the dough or knead the dough. This is pretty much the only kneading that we are going to do. Once you're kneaded like that, and I like to take it onto the bench and then perform a few slap and folds. This will help further develop the gluten and then strengthen the gluten. Okay, so when your dough becomes smooth and elastic like this, all you have to do is place this in a greased bowl and then cover it with a tea towel. And then we are going to leave this to rest again for another 45 minutes. Okay, so this is our dough after the 45 minutes rest. Now I'm going to perform a few coil folds. Lubricate your hands first with water and then lift your dough and coil it underneath. So watch me carefully as I do this. So this is simply gonna strengthen the gluten even further. And once you are done that, simply place the dough in the same greased bowl and then cover it with the tea towel, and you can leave it to rest for another 45 minutes. Alright, so this is the dough after the second 45 minutes interval. Look how it's got few air bubbles on top. And now I'm gonna perform the second coil fold. So I'll show you from top how it's done. Make sure to wet your hands frequently, otherwise the dough is gonna stick to your fingers and you won't be able to work with it. So same as before, once you're done, place the dough again in the same bowl and cover with the tea towel and leave it to rest. Okay, so after the final 45 minutes rest, perform another coil fold just like before. So I'll speed it up because you've already seen it. And once done, simply place in the same bowl and cover it with a cling film. And now this can be placed in the refrigerator for the retardation. When you want to make the focaccia, pull your dough out of the refrigerator and simply leave it on the countertop for about an hour or two and let it come to room temperature. The dough has come to room temperature, so I'm now going to prepare my baking dish. Use a brush and olive oil to grease the pan. Make sure you cover all corners and sides. Be generous with it because this is what's going to stop the focaccia from sticking to the pan, and it will also help crisp up the bottom. And now simply drop the focaccia dough onto the greased pan like this. And then make sure you oil your fingers and then press the dough so that it will spread across the baking dish there's no special technique for this, just make sure you spread it evenly across. Now you can cover this tray with a tea towel or a cling film and then leave it in a warm place for the final proof. While my dough is proofing, I'm gonna get my toppings ready. So for today's focaccia, I'm using some tomatoes, garlic and some capers, and also some herbs. You can of course use whatever toppings you like, and I mean, if you don't want to add anything, you can bake your focaccia plain as well. The focaccia is now proofed, and before you add the toppings, make sure you have preheated your oven. This is how the fully proofed focaccia dough looks like. I've got here with me some rosemary, thyme, onions, sliced garlic, capers, and some chopped up Thai green chili peppers, and also my tomatoes. Okay, I'm gonna start by drizzling olive oil generously and then spreading it all across the dough, and then with my fingers I'm gonna make really deep indents. We call this docking as well. These dents that you make on the dough will actually help trap some of the olive oil, and then when you bake this dough, it's gonna give you this beautiful crumb structure. When you're satisfied with this, you can start placing other toppings. I'll start with tomatoes and then continue with the rest of the toppings. As you can see, I bury some of my toppings and then leave some floating on top, and this way you can get a really nice distribution of toppings all across the dough, like both horizontally and vertically. Feel free to use your favorite toppings and always experiment with different and new flavors. I usually find this very therapeutic, so I always take my time doing this. And if you don't like to have any toppings on top, you can of course bake this focaccia plain as well. Okay, finally a good pinch of sea salt, and then you can drizzle the remaining olive oil. This focaccia is now ready to go in the preheated oven. You can find the specific baking instructions on my blog. After about 45 to 50 minutes in the oven, the focaccia is now ready to come out. This is the baked focaccia. Look how beautifully golden brown it is. Leave the whole tray on a wire rack until it cools down. Once this is cool enough to handle, you can carefully lift the focaccia off the tray and then place it directly on the wire rack. The focaccia is now ready to be served. Use a serrated knife to get cleaner cuts. If you try to cut the focaccia while it is still piping hot, you'll often find the crumb to be sticky or tacky. So to avoid that, I always let my focaccia cool completely. And with that, we have come to the end of our video. I really do hope you enjoyed watching this. If you want to see my future videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. To find more delicious recipes, please head over to my blog www.myloveofbaking.com.